Are we ready? Can we do this? Okay.
Should I start?
Yes. Hi, my name is Greenmun. I'm a member of the Virginia Beach Taxpayers Alliance for Transportation. I'm also a member of the Virginia Beach Tea Party. So, last Saturday, I got up a little late. I had stayed up working late on Friday night, and I missed the morning meetings that we have on Saturday. So I went to my local restaurant to have breakfast. And my family was busy off doing stuff, so I had breakfast by myself. And being there, I picked up this magazine, which is called the Princess Anne Independent News. And I was eating my breakfast, and it says, "Big plans. A plan for an inter-facility traffic area. Much of the land the city now owns includes an environmental center and is shown in the concept drawing, agricultural research and education center. Just the tip of the iceberg. See page 10. So I flipped to page 10, and I was blown away at the scope and breadth of what the city has quietly been working on since 2011. I also found out that all the public hearings for it had already been held, but there was one more public hearing that was going to be held before they were done, and that was Tuesday of this past week at Building 19 somewhere in the Municipal Center. So I caught a hold of Diana Howard, who's the chairwoman of the Tea Party, and I said, "We probably should go to this. Do you want to go and find out what this is all about?" And she goes, "I don't even know what you're talking about." So I went over to her house and I read her this article and the information. The interesting thing is, at the end of this paper, there's a dissenting column by Karen Beardsley Kwanzi, who serves on the Virginia Beach Planning Commission, who will be hearing this in a few weeks. And she is very upset at this plan because what they're going to do is going to increase residential development and density below the green line in the southern section of the city, which is not in accordance with the city's plan for strategic growth areas for mixed-use residential development and to retain the rural and suburban culture of the rest of the city, which is what the planning department's been instructed to do through our central planners. When I went to the meeting with Diana Howard on Tuesday night, Karen was there, and as soon as the briefing by the city staff and the president of the Urban Development Association, who we taxpayers hired to put this all together, to produce this 78-page summary of the ITA, she went up and I went up to ask the speaker, what do these things cost and who's going to pay for them? And imagine my surprise to hear a current planning member taking this guy to task. And he goes, "I am really surprised that there are so many people here tonight. I did exactly what you asked me to do." And she takes him right to task and says, "No, you did not. What we're supposed to be preserving the open space in the city, and all this development around it is going to do the opposite of what we're trying to achieve." And he was backpedaling, and it was very interesting. So the name, first of all, is very misleading. This is one of the largest projects that I have seen in our city ever. This is bigger than Town Center in its scope and its breadth. This poster that I made this morning is a list of the projects. I'm going to, for the people listening, I'm going to read them to you and tell you a little bit about them. The first one is what I'm calling the phony historic Princess Anne Center. There are 3 projects next to our current municipal center. You remember the whole discussion about moving City Hall to Town Center and the $55 million? The reason that's being done is to free up land for residential development in our municipal center, because it turns out that under the Base Realignment and Closure Commission, the land between Oceana and Fentress Naval Air Station has restrictions on the development. But the municipal center is outside the ACUS area, meaning it's prime residential area for urban redevelopment. But it's full of the municipal center. And all around the municipal center is free public parking parking, so when they have a city council meeting, you can park because all the city workers leave and the public comes in and parks for the meeting. It's perfect, and you don't pay anything for it, right? All of that parking lot is going to be turned into a faux colonial Williamsburg, this is out of this study, like residential development with attainable, that's the word they use, housing for the city workers to be built so they can walk in a campus-style setting similar to colonial Williamsburg back and forth to work with retail development. In addition to that, there are multiple parking decks that we taxpayers are going to pay for that will be built for the residents and the municipal workers in our city hall to make up for the redevelopment of the faux colonial Williamsburg they're going to build all over the campus where our municipal center is in the southern section of our city. In addition to that, beautiful open green space at the corner of Lansdowne and Nimmo Parkway, which is now a horse pasture, opposite what's the Princess Anne Middle School football field. They're going to put in this massive, what do they call it? Get the right word. It's for like making mulch and compost and that, and there's a term for it. It's not coming to my mind, but anyway, it's a facility center for solid waste management with office spaces for city workers to be built in this area. Because of all things, it's above a 100-year floodplain, and with all the flooding that we have, that would be a place to build development, but we're going to make it with surface level parking for city trucks and city workers in there. In addition, they're planning to build 300,000 square feet of additional office space in the municipal center as a, yes, I'm not making this up.
I know you're not. I'm just.
So if you look at my poster here, the numbers in green are the numbers of acreage that are required to do this project, most of which have already been purchased since 2011 when this plan was changed. The number below it is the number of developable acres that are within the section. These are the various projects, and I'm going to try to go through them because I don't want this to be too long. It's massive. So the first one is the historical Princess Anne Center. What they want to do is take the Kellum House as a centerpiece, and they're going to build little colonial Williamsburgs behind them to keep the land along Princess Anne and the lawn view shed looking okay, and cram tons of residential houses in there. They're going to tear down the actual historic buildings because they don't have significant value and replace them with replica historic buildings. Okay, so that's what they're doing. The second one is the Municipal Center Village, and this is with the 300 square foot of new office space. And yeah, and then they're going to have, it's called residential infill, and then they're going to have flexible government spaces. The next one below it, at 288 acres, is the City Municipal Service Center, which is the thing I was telling you about with the trucks and the solid waste management with all of that area across from there, which is a beautiful open space right now. The next one is the Biotech Business Park. Now what's misleading about this is there was a ton of money we spent to expand Princess Anne Road and build the Nimmo Parkway to ease traffic congestion, because remember the Southeastern Expressway we never built? All of this is to create over-congestion on the Princess Anne corridor to promote light rail and then promote the need to build the Southeastern Expressway, because in the plans in this document, it includes showing where they're reserving the area in this ITA area for the Southeastern Expressway, because once they clog up Princess Anne Road with all this new development, residential and retail, you're going to need another way to get back and forth, which will be this expensive Southeastern Expressway. No, I'm not making this up. So the Biotech Park is going to be between what's now the Municipal Center and Lansdowne Commons, and they're starting to construct that. But they're going to put that along Princess Anne next to the Municipal Center. Behind the Biotechnical Park, in that same area, is going to be the Sports Center. Now we have major problems with flooding, and we were wondering, why did City Council not adopt Jessica Abbott's and John Moss's 6-year program as opposed to the City Manager's 15-year program? And the reason is we only have a certain amount of bond debt capacity where we can borrow money to build all these things. And since this project has been going on in secret, we would have consumed all the bond debt and they wouldn't have been able to float bonds, which means borrow money to pay for all this stuff that I'm telling you about. So from the Municipal Center and the new faux Williamsburg mixed-use urban redevelopment with the campus area for this attainable housing for the city workers and the multiple parking decks, which used to be free parking, we're going to have this biomedical technical park, and then behind that we're going to have a whole series of athletic fields, and then we're going to build yet another field house, and the purpose of this field house is to become the U.S. Field Hockey's practice facility for our U.S. Field Hockey team, which of course there's been no. But anyway, no, I'm not making this up. It's in this document. Now the document says do not remove, but we're not very good at obeying what we're.
So I asked, and I got mine.
So
is there a PDF version?
It's online on the city website. I found it. So anyway, the next thing after the sports center, which is athletic fields, is this term called passive recreation. Now get this. In the southern section of the city, they're going to use stormwater management money to build state-of-the-art stormwater management facilities in land that floods that they've purchased. And then all along, to jack up the cost, they're going to build kayaking streams and facilities and horse paths and hiking and trailing and rope adventure centers. And they're going to build it all along the stormwater abatement in the southern section of the city. And that's called passive recreation, including landscaping, canoeing, fishing, hiking, and bird watching, with kiosks and displays. You want to talk about priorities, folks? We got people's houses, Teresa's one of them, flooded out from a lack of taking care of our stormwater, and we're talking about developing the southern section in the woods of wetlands, and then mitigating that development with state-of-the-art stormwater mitigation in areas where we don't have any development. It's mind-boggling. The next one on the list at 171, oh, by the way, that was 386 acres. The next one at 171 acres, at 345 acres is the agricultural production. This is classic Agenda 21 sustainable farming for farm-to-table movement, and it's specifically designed to include teaching us about urban farming and the importance of urban farming. And we're going to build centers and multiple buildings to have a research facility down here to advance the ecological urban farming movement. No, I'm not making this up. And there's beautiful pictures in here of these tall structures that were, yeah, you guys look shocked. Okay. There's going to be a visitor center and an educational center on the list as well that we're going to be building. So that's the agricultural production facility. Last on the list is checking in at 792 acres that we're buying or have already purchased is the North Landing Park. So when you're driving up Indian River Road and you get to like where the back of Courthouse Estates is, on the opposite side of Courthouse Estates, which by the way is the green line, they're going to build this massive park, and it's going to have, it's going to be for camping, passive recreation, it's going to have kayaking, fishing, horse trails, running trails, adventure rope facilities. Excuse me?
In the other,
right. But here's what its purpose is going to be. They want to partner with the universities to create a Albemarle watershed research for the benefit of the North Carolina Inland Waterway studies.
Why do we care about North Carolina?
And there's also a new school going to be built in there. Not part of this, but they're going to create a new school in there, and I don't have the details on that. I'm going to be getting that information. So if you add up all of the acreage that we have already been buying quietly with money set aside for open space out of our taxes. This comes to a total of 2,247 acres. But since I went to the last public hearing and we asked them how much has the city already spent to buy all of this land to do this plan, we were told that information is not available. So I went into my filing cabinet and I took out my assessment on my house. And I currently live on a ½ acre of land in Virginia Beach, 3 miles from the municipal center off Nimmo Parkway. So my 1/2 acre land is currently assessed at $138,000 for my ½ acre. So I multiplied that value times 2,247 acres, and it comes to $621 million. Now, of course, a large percentage of this is farmland and woodland, so it's not going to cost $138,000 an acre. But the potential of the land that they're going to be taking that's not farmland is worth that, as it could have been residential area, but it's going to become city property for trucks and things like this. So you got to look at what we're not going to get if it was allowed to be developed in the free market. At $2,500 an acre times the total amount, it checks in at $5.6 million. So somewhere between that number of $5.6 million and $621 million, your tax money's already been spent to implement this plan. The city's been buying up this land to follow with this urban redevelopment model to increase density outside of the strategic growth areas, which the planning department is not happy about. So my purpose in here today, I didn't have a lot of time, was first of all to make you aware of this, because I don't think anybody is aware of this. There was nothing in the Virginian pilot. Since they concluded all of their public hearings, this is now after the input from the last meeting on Tuesday. It's going to go to the Planning Commission. And some of them are not happy because what's not in the plan? Not included in the plan is a ton of residential development in the southern part of the city, right outside of where we're going to invest in this plan, which means the plan is spurring that residential development to shift development to the rural and low-density suburban. So in this discussion, the Planning Commission woman, Karen, says to the guy from the Urban Development Associates, well, that land was set aside in the transition zone that you can have 1 house per acre. Because not only does it need to be low density for the airplanes flying between Oceana and Fentress Field, but we're trying to preserve the rural section of the city, and that's the whole point of the Greenland, so that you can have an urban section, a suburban section, and a rural. And he goes, and I've heard this before, and he says, well, let's take a look, for example, at this 792 acres. It's all wetlands that the city bought. There's only 93 acres out of that we could possibly build on because the rest of it's wetlands. So what we want to do is, by right, I could have built 1 house on all of this. So what I'm going to do is just cram them all on the 93 acres because it's the same thing, right? And we'll just have high-density, walkable neighborhoods. And the planning lady was going, no, that's not what we're doing. It's defeating the entire purpose of the transition area. So, you know, perhaps we're still working through the process. Today, we were at this meeting, and Councilman Bob Dyer was talking about public engagement, trying to improve that process. Folks, nobody's even aware of this, and this is one of the biggest things I've seen. Also not on this list is a massive redevelopment of Pungo, which is separate from this program, but also south of the Green Line. And this project is huge. So what we're doing is we're ignoring